Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Parra. I'm the Director of Public Affairs here at the Miami Foundation, and I'm so excited to be with all of you here today. And I am most excited to welcome each of you to tonight's Our Miami, the People's Forum Series event. And today we'll be highlighting County Commission District 11. On behalf of the Miami Foundation, I'd like to just take a quick second to thank our board of directors and all of the behind the scenes staff that make these events possible. We literally couldn't do it without you. And I'd also like to thank all of our amazing nonprofit partners and our friends at the New Tropic for helping us make tonight a success. We are so encouraged to see our communities come together through this forum series and join the conversation leading up to our local August 18th primaries, which is only a week away. And so we'd like to thank you all for making local issues your priority by being here today. Without community voice and participation, change would not be possible. And with that, I'd like to remind all of our viewers that tonight is not a debate, this is a forum, and an opportunity to meet and bring out the best from each of our candidates who are running for office. To the candidates, thank you each for taking the time to discuss the matters that really matter to the community, that you're aspiring to represent. I really thank you for your time. And for those of you who are just tuning in the words of our fearless leader at the Miami Foundation, Rebecca Fishman-Lipsey, if you have not yet completed your census, please open up another browser and fill it out either before, during, or after this event. With that said, I'm excited to turn it over to tonight's moderator from the New Tropic, Bruce Pinchbeck.
Hello. Lauren, that just came to me at the end here, but I'm guessing I am good to go. I chopped up. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. As Lauren said, I'm Bruce Pinchbeck. I'm the co-founder of the New Tropic, and I'm very excited to be here with you all and honored to host this forum. Friendly reminder that this is a forum, not a debate, though we do have a few ground rules to go over. So each candidate will have the same opening question and given 1 minute to respond. Each candidate then will have up to 90 seconds to respond to each of the remaining questions directed to them. While some of the questions will be directed to both candidates, others will be directed to a specific participant. Because of the size of this panel, I suspect we're going to stay the same question for each candidate and kind of reverse order on each turn. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond to rebut a specific comment made by their opponent when signaled by myself. I'm going to try to avoid any back and forth and allegations and accusations, as it's really not the purpose of the forum here today. And anyone who persists will be muted by myself or the team here at the Miami Foundation. I don't suspect we're going to get into that, but good to know. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds at the end of the forum for prepared closing remarks. And so I think if we have our candidates, we can introduce them. But the incumbent commissioner, Joe Martinez, was invited to the event, but was unable to participate this evening. Though I'm very happy to welcome his two challengers, Robert Asensio and Cristhian Mancera. Hi, Robert, I see you here.
Yes, hi there.
And just waiting for Cristhian. All right, Cristhian, can you hear us? You good? All right. So before we started the panel, we had a coin toss, and Robert Asensio had won and chose to go first. So let's dive in. Running and being in public office is difficult. Being in the public spotlight is a challenge, and I am always very curious when I meet anyone running for office. Why? Why put yourself in that position? Why are you here? And what inspired you to run for county commission?
Certainly. Well, good evening. I'm proud and honored to be here. And thank you for this invite. I look forward to this conversation. I think it's going to be a good conversation. Anyway, so you asked me a question, and it's a rather important question. Why? And I'll tell you because I care. I'm a 34-year public servant. I spent from a very young age. I went into the military. I served 6 years in the U.S. Army Reserves, Special Operations Community. I followed with joining the police force because I believe in taking care of my community and addressing the needs of our community. Following my 26 years in law enforcement, I retired because I was seeking answers from our legislators, my particular legislator, my state rep, and honestly, I was not getting those answers. There are many ills and many needs that have gone unmet, of not just our district, but the county and our state. And rather than being able to get answers from him, I would get talking points. So, when I see a problem, as I did when military, I wanted to protect our country. I wanted to serve and protect our country. Police, I wanted to serve in our community and address the issues. There's many shortcomings in law creation, and that's why I want to serve. I went and served in the legislature. Why at the county commission? Because the majority of the issues that affect our day-to-day lives occur at the county level. I look around at my county commissioner, and there's a huge void in leadership from my county commissioner, who was first elected in the year 2000.
10 seconds.
We have many unmet needs that simply need addressing. I believe I bring 34 years of experience in public service to address those needs. And I'll go into more details as we go forward in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, I gave Robert 90 seconds there since we have two panelists kind of improv it on the spot. So I will give you 90 seconds as well to answer the question. The question was, why? Why run for county commission? Why are you here?
Well, I am here because I want to bring fundamental change, a way of doing things, and I want to refresh that. I want to give District 11 a new way of moving forward, investing in technology, investing in our people, bringing quality of life to our residents, but most important of all, making sure that we understand that our community is the back of this district, is the foundation of this district. And we need to be able to have leadership that listens, that has an open door policy. And I believe that serving is a vocation that I have had over the past years, not only here in the United States, but also when I was in New York, where I grew up, and also overseas. I've always been involved in politics and public service, and I believe that I can bring that education, that experience into the commission, and a fresh air into the way we do things in here in Miami-Dade. And that is my commitment: the community, our district, our county, and new ideas for a new vision for the 21st century.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Cristhian. Cristhian, coming back to you, how do you think our county response to COVID-19 has been going? What could be done better?
Well, going back to what I was saying initially in my opening statement about involving the community, I think that we lacked the ability to engage our business owners. We lacked the ability to listen to our communities and to understand what was really going on and how we could have trained, educated our community as to how to cope with COVID-19. I think the idea of opening up, closing back, and then reopening with a bunch of limitations, which I understand under the certain current conditions, but we haven't been able to really learn how to cope and live with COVID-19. So I think that the leadership at the county forgot that we have technology, forgot that we can use technology as a tool, as a backup, so that we can actually tell people, guide people as to how we can better go to certain restaurants, certain areas, the beaches, because it's not about closing our county. It's not about forgetting that we need to move forward. It's how we move forward using these tools, these technologies to support our recovery. And that is very important. But most important is that we involve the community, that we listen to our residents, and that by listening, we actually create and write legislation that goes with those thoughts in mind. And I think that that is what has been lacking: lack of leadership, lack of involvement with the community. And I think that listening, that fundamental action of listening and paying attention to our community has not been around. And I think that has meant that many of the county mayors have been annoyed with the current mayor of our county, because simply he wasn't listening and he was just doing his things his way without having the community in mind.
Thank you, Cristhian. Robert, to you, how do you think our Miami-Dade County's response to COVID-19 has been going, and what could be done better?
Okay, before I answer that, I would direct those, because this is going to be a lengthy conversation that will extend beyond my 90 seconds here. I encourage everyone to go to my Facebook page, or even look up the community newspapers and look at an op-ed that I wrote, my vision towards COVID, addressing COVID moving forward. I will start out by saying it's been disastrous, plain and simple. You know, we know that words have meanings and have consequences, and we know that actions speak louder than words. If we look at the actions of our leadership, we see a huge deficit in just that leadership. We know that many problems existed long before COVID that will have only been made worse by the pandemic. We know that our commissioner has been absent in this conversation. He has said that he's tired of hearing about COVID when we had to lock down, right before we had to lock down. He has pushed back on the policies that have been implemented, the safety standards that have been implemented, that my leadership will bring a decisive plans that include pushing for testing, more testing. We know we need more testing. We know we need trace testing. I don't care what anybody says. We still need trace testing at larger scales. We need to make it easier for people to test. If we don't have the means in our district and we be getting pushback from the other commissioners, I will use the public, the pulpit, the position to advocate for more. We need local funding, but to address these needs, and we need guidance. Businesses need instructions on how to don and doff, put on, take off equipment, how to better protect their employees, but also on the public side. Look, we recently had the TWU union, transport workers union, sue over lack of personal protection gear. We need to make sure that the public employees, that our core services are handled appropriately, and that those people that are protecting the public, that are serving the public, are equipped appropriately.
Thank you.
This is a broad answer, but we need many more things to be done than we have done so far.
Thank you. So sticking with COVID-19 as a theme for a little bit longer here, and then we're going to dive into a lot of issues here, everything from criminal justice to transportation and more. And so COVID-19 has presented us, and this is a community question, and I really like this one. So COVID-19 has presented us with challenges that are impossible to solve without evidence and data, from closing parks to reopening schools. Equally challenging decisions will have to be made in future regarding climate change impacts on our county. What do you believe is the role of scientists, doctors, public health experts, and informing decisions made by the county? Where would they fit under your leadership? And this goes to you first, Robert, with 90 seconds.
I think they have an immense role. So we should have been listening to the scientists. We should have been listening and following the data, analyzing the data, reevaluating based on data. I mean, we would not be in this position if we had. And so that will tell you, frankly, that they have a big role. We have a resiliency department in the county, top-notch people in the environment, in that arena, in that industry. We need to really bring them to the forefront, not just keep them there working in the silos or on the back end and pulling them off the shelf when we need them. No, they need to be an integral part of moving forward. Look, our district is the western part of the county. We have a responsibility and stewardship, if you will, over the Everglades. We need to make sure that these people who have the knowledge base, a cross section, right? It is a task of stakeholders, cross section of stakeholders that need to come together to be part of the solution. So, man, I look forward to having as many people as we possibly can, because you know what, when you get elected to office or you're part of service, you don't have all the answers. He or she who employs the resources and taps into the wealth of knowledge that we have will ultimately do better. And that's what I seek to do here.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, if you need, I can repeat the whole start of the question, but the base of the question is, what do you believe the role of scientists, doctors, public health experts is in informing decisions made by the county, and where would they fit under your leadership?
Well, I think the responsibility under my leadership would be to find the most professional and educated sources so that I can make the best decisions, so that we can take to the county commission the data that is necessary, not only to put forward legislation that will benefit our community, but also to remove any ideological or political pretense or objective that might be behind. Because I think that one of the main issues that we have had during this crisis is that we have politicized this crisis of COVID-19. And I think that We need to be able to reach science. We need to be able to get the information, the data, involve the educational sectors by involving FIU, for example, which has a bunch of think tanks. And I think that we can use those resources at hand, which are in our district. So we can actually investigate. FIU has a medical center and a medical faculty, and I think that they can also be a great part of the discussion as to how we learn how to cope with COVID-19, how we can reopen and recover from COVID-19, but how we do it based on the data and the science, and to avoid politicizing this huge crisis, because the more we do that, the more difficult it will become. And I think we have to tell our community that we need educated thoughts, we need educated decisions, and using scientists and using medical experts to recover and to come back from this crisis is something that I will commit to as a Miami-Dade Commission for District 11.
Thank you. That was almost exactly 90 seconds. Awesome. Okay, so I have a question. It's kind of a combo question from the audience who signed up to follow this event tonight. It is from Emily and zip code 33166, and I have an initial H for zip code 33143, which is South Miami and Miami Springs and South Miami, respectively. So many businesses won't survive COVID-19. We've already seen some of that happen, and we don't fully understand the scope of what this is going to look like. What will you do to help prevent a housing crisis in this next phase as businesses start wiping out, unemployment changes its path, and it might, and as we might see evictions starting to come back? So I guess the question is, what will you do to prevent a housing crisis due to non-payments? Cristhian, this starts with you.
Well, one of the things that you have seen with the CARES Act and the money that was sent by the federal government to our county, most of this money has not been used yet and has not been invested properly. I think that we should have been able to have resources not only for the recovery of small businesses so that they can keep employing these residents who depend on these jobs, but also every time we have a problem like this and a crisis like this, we are out there putting out fires, but we never have a prevention plan, meaning that we have had some plans at the federal level and the state level for people who are renting, who are paying rent at certain facilities, but we never think that there are many residents also who depend on these monies, especially not the business owners, but the property owners. So we have to have a comprehensive plan, which means that we have to go back not only to involve the experts, the scientists, but also the business owners, the community. Everybody who is involved in this game, in this crisis, needs to be heard so that we can actually have a comprehensive plan, find the resources so that when we take a measure, when we bring any type of decision to the Miami Commission Board, we are thinking about every possible scenario so that we can protect everyone who is involved in this crisis. If you saw, for example, we closed many of our businesses, but we never thought about, for example, the people who drive our buses, and many of them got sick through COVID. So we need to have a comprehensive plan to recover and come back.
Thank you, Cristhian. Robert, the question essentially is, what will you do to help prevent a housing crisis due to non-payments with COVID-19?
Sure. So let's talk a little more specifics, right? So we know that under the CARES Act, there was a rent relief fund that was held up. I would not be I would be opposed to holding up any of the federal money. I want immediate disbursement. I believe the county has the infrastructure, and if we don't, we have the employees and the knowledge base to be able to ensure that the right procedures are put in place and the safeguards are put in place to make sure that we provide some level of release. But we know that this problem extends long before COVID. We know that not only do renters need assistance, but we know that homeowners need assistance, and we'll look to expand those programs. The other part of this is the RISE program for the businesses, right? We need to ensure that now that program is up and running, that we continue to advance and the partnerships that will increase the level of funding into the program to be able to provide some relief. But we will not be able to do that unless we begin to diversify our economy. That's a huge piece. That is a combination of workforce development, and investing in businesses for business growth. I have a very aggressive plan to be able to bring business development and business growth through apprenticeship programs and actually bringing emerging industries into the area that will infuse the tens of billions of dollars that we desperately need into the community, because we know if people are earning more money, it's all relative. If they earn more money, they can survive. And we desperately need this right now.
10 seconds. Oh, okay.
One last thing. Sadowski Act. I mean, the Sadowski Trust Fund. Very few people know about that. Very few people talk about it at the state level. We need to make sure we tap into that and make sure that that money is used to SHIFT program and the development program, the dollars that go specifically to create more affordable housing for people.
Thank you. And coming back to you, Robert, kind of the other part of this equation, and again, another question from our audience here. So from Karen and 33035 in Homestead, if elected, what is your plan to help small businesses that may have been impacted by COVID-19 closures?
Well, it looks like Karen's in the hot spot, right? Or hot zone, so to say. Look, I said it a minute ago about the RISE program. I think we need to look at other programs that we will be able to utilize. Look, we can't move forward, and this is the vision that I bring, plain and simple. If you don't have vision, you can't move the economy forward. The vision that I bring to the table and what I bring, the commitment I bring to the table is we must invest in the community. How do we do that? There are various different ways. We used to have programs in the county where the county itself would guarantee certain loans for those people that qualified. I think it's time to really look at that again. We have partnerships. We have the private sector, a very, very rich private sector that will benefit. Another part of this is we need to lobby, not just locally, but at the state and federal level in order to bring those dollars to be able to stimulate the economy. Because unless we provide these assistance programs for these businesses, i.e. loan forgiveness programs, small interest loans, and long-term loans to small businesses, as well as workforce development, we're just going around circles. So I look forward. I would like Karen, is that her name, the one that asked the question? Send me a line. I want to hear specifically what's on her mind, because I want to address that. That is a huge concern. When I have business owners calling and telling me that they're going under after 20 some odd, 30 some odd years of business, that they're having to shut down because they can't find assistance, that's troubling to me, because they are the engine of our economy.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, the question is, if elected, what is your plan to help small businesses that may have been impacted by COVID-19 closures?
The plan should be, as I said earlier, we need to open up, but we need to open up responsibly. And by opening up and by having our business owners and companies come back to work, employees coming back to work, we are able to begin our rebuilding process. But we also have to be able to have contingency measures so that we don't generate more cases of COVID-19 and that we reopen up in a very responsible way. That being said, I don't think the idea is to give people a pathway to get in debt or to have access to more loans. I think we have to find intelligent ways in which we actually provide think tanks, we provide all the possible counseling for our small business owners so that they can reopen and they can come back. Now, whether that is going to be in the form of a loan or not, I'm not really certain that would be a good way to do it, but we have to find the resources. We have to be able to access the federal government, the state government, and the local government so that we can actually give the proper tools for our small business to opening up, so that we can prevent these companies from going into bankruptcy and having a huge issue of more unemployment problems here in our county. And I think that is going to be my priority, meeting, understanding, and letting everybody know that they have a commissioner that will have their backs. And if together we can work to reopen and come back, I'm sure that we will be able to generate the revenue so that we can have monies, grants that do not involve loans, so that people can come back and reopen their businesses.
Thank you. Changing gears a little bit here. We have seen a lot of protests recently in regards to Black Lives Matter, and we've heard a lot of calls for defunding the police and civilian oversight committee. So a question I saw kind of in some of the reader feedback, some of our community partners, and I'm kind of to distill it down a little bit, but and this goes to Cristhian first. As a county commissioner, will you support establishing and funding the civilian and police oversight panel?
The answer to that question is that I am opposed to bringing more oversight to a police department or to law enforcement, especially in this county that has been working and that has given example of what good policing is about. Our police department is not perfect. Our law enforcement is not perfect, but I don't believe in putting more red tape into a department that, and we go back to the data has shown over the past years that our department is an example. Our department is one of those that has the least and fewest cases of police abuse. So generating more panels, generating more bureaucracy to do something that already exists. We already have panels that take care of these revisions over police behavior within the department, of course, and within the county. But I think that the idea of demonizing police officers or demonizing the police department or demonizing the correction officers, I think that these individuals go out day and night. They patrol the streets of Miami-Dade County and they protect every single community. I think that what has been done for the past few weeks and months is a process of demonizing these departments, especially in some other states and counties. And here in Miami-Dade, we need to protect what has been working. And I would advocate not for defunding or destroying our police officers, but I would advocate for providing better training and more resources so that our police officers understand cultural diversity and they can better operate within every single community that they are involved in.
Thank you, Cristhian. Robert, as a county commissioner, will you support establishing and funding the civilian and police oversight panel?
The answer to the question is yes. Okay, and that comes from a 26-year law enforcement officer who worked in internal affairs and ran an internal affairs investigative unit. Look, I was recently speaking with some police officers, both active and retired officers. This stand about us against them, it's got to stop. Okay, so if we're talking about a singular police department, we lose sight of the injustices across the board. We know that Miami-Dade Police Department has the highest standards in the county, generally speaking, but we also know that we have roughly 32 police agencies in the county. We have to advocate across the board to ensure that there's a standard of policies when it comes to holding officers accountable that started from training in the police academy, that range all the way to hiring, all the way to retention. And how do we deal with complaints? We know that officers are humans. They make mistakes. And by having an oversight panel, it's no way, no shape whatsoever demonizing police officers. Look, everybody needs accountability. I would say that even the commissioners need more accountability. Certainly our commissioner needs more accountability. But at the end of the day, I believe the civilian panel is going to happen. Now, what do we need to do in order to make sure that it meets the objective that we should be seeking? And that's to make sure that it is created in statute or by county ordinance into the charter, that it is clearly defined as to its mission, scope, and operation, and when it goes out, how it's funded, who will serve, the training that they're going to have, what the qualifications are to serve on the committee, and the panel, and what level of authority they have. Listen, this is a complex answer. We know that the injustices that people have been protesting over just do not stop at the law enforcement. They extend way throughout society. And most of the time, the injustices that they're complaining about or that they're protesting over and they're suffering over, it's simply, one last time, they're simply because of policymakers' poor decisions that were created by elected officials.
Thank you. So before COVID-19 hit, the Miami Foundation released a survey amongst residents about some of the key priority issues that they have. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone here or anyone watching that transit and transportation was a huge issue across the board, no matter who they were surveying. So across the country, and particularly in Miami-Dade County, public transit systems are experiencing massive ridership decrease and budgetary losses as a result of COVID-19. What is your plan to ensure that Miami-Dade Transit bounces back stronger than ever, considering that many new residents may have to rely on this service in addition to the existing rider base? And this one goes to you, Robert.
Certainly. So we know that pretty much our economy is based on consumer confidence. So we have to give the ridership more confidence, right? I would challenge anyone to go out there right now in the afternoon in the hot sun that we have and go out there and wait for a bus that does not come on time. So I want to make sure that we use that, properly utilize that half-penny sales tax to ensure that we have more routes, more buses on the road, extend the hours for the ridership, give them the confidence. But at the end of the day, we also have to diversify our economy, because something that's not talked about. Recently, there was a report on the Fitch rating of the bonds for the transportation, right? And they gave it a AA rating. Some people say that's a great rating. I say not. That's a calling card, because half-penny sales tax, a lot of our future revenue that will be generated for public transportation comes from the tourism. And we know that our tourism has been deeply impacted. We need emerging industries. We need this workforce development that I'm speaking of, this business platform, it's all interconnected. So we need to make sure that we're generating revenue in different ways and reducing the burden that our commuters will have on the tourism, and therefore we have a poor transportation system. I will focus on making sure that we utilize that half-penny sales tax, and we create separate means of revenue without taxing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, the question is, what is your plan to ensure that Miami-Dade Transit bounces back stronger than ever, considering that many new residents may have to rely on this service in addition to the existing rider base?
Okay, we have to focus on something, which is that we're not going to have a lot of revenue anyway, based on what has been going on because of coronavirus. And I think that we can look at some countries that have done an effective example, in some districts, like for example in Colombia, in Medellin, they have instituted a very good program as to how people use the public transportation system. And it has worked pretty well, but it works well there because the city has marketed their public transportation system so that people can use it, and they have made it available to its citizens. Now, we are not going to have a lot of resources to come here and say that we're going to do this and that. It all depends how we recover and how fast we recover. But I think that we have to focus on how do we use the existing resources we have, the metro buses that we have, how can we upgrade the stations that we have, how can we upgrade also the buses so that people can use them without the fear, not only for the bus driver and also for the passengers, but we need to have a unified transportation system. I have insisted in this, that connects every single resources that we have today, not for the future. Today, we have metro buses, we have metro rail, we have the Trulies, we have the commuter trains. Let's bring the commuter train here to West Day, to Homestead also. We have the rails to do it. It doesn't cost that much money. We just need leadership to get that done. And I think that just to focus on one thing before I finish is that if you see, I go back to the thing about putting fires without having a consistent plan. We planned to build all these ridiculous roads with tolls because this was going to bring a bunch of revenue into our county. And today we see that because of this pandemic, most people are at home, and these tolls are not generating the revenue that they suspected or expected would generate. So we have to think about more intelligent ways of how using the resources that we have today. But listen, our community needs to understand that we need to market our transportation system. We need to revamp it, like upgrade it so that we can use what we have. And then when we have more revenue, we'll be able to implement more and more solutions for mass transit. But we need to be clear and transparent in how we face this crisis of COVID-19 and transportation as well.
Thanks, Cristhian. So you just mentioned something at the end there, and I'd like to kind of segue with it, is a question from one of our viewers. So this is from Albert from 33133, I believe. I might have written over the zip code a bit there. Do you support the 836 extension? Yes, no, and why?
I don't support this extension if it's not going to have the inclusion of any technological resource that will reduce the impact of not only the impact on the environment, but also on our citizens. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, in 20 years, and we need to begin to think in mass transit. We need to think about how we're going to use technology to reduce time, to reduce the amount of cars on the streets. But also, why not? Why not extend the metro rail? What is the problem with this? Are we afraid of the car industry? I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing. We need to be able to tell our car industry we're still going to sell cars, but we need to sell electric cars. But we also need to allow residents who live in West Dade, who live in Homestead, to be able to connect with Miami downtown, with Midtown, Miami Beach, and we need to connect our city. And that's why I'm talking about a unified transport system alternative where we connect every single area of our county. And that is my commitment. The 836 is only an alternative if it includes, while we're building it, we extend the Metro Rail or we extend some type of mass transit alternative. But if not, then we're really just building a massive highway for special interest, and that is not the interest of the community. And we need to be clear on those aspects.
Thank you, Cristhian. Robert, do you support a 36 extension? Yes or no, and why?
Well, I'll start out with, I'm glad the courts ruled against it, right? The recent court ruling was to stop the construction of the Kendall Parkway, if that's what we're speaking of, right? There are many concerns that I have with that. It was from the safety measures that were not written in stone or written into policy that do not protect adequately the urban expansion of the or building beyond the urban development zone. I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the impact on the Everglades. Look, when I was a state representative, the expansion of the Chrome Parkway, we pushed heavy U.S. Department of Transportation to make sure that they did not encroach on whether it's 6 feet, which was what they wanted to do into the Root Preserve. We made sure that they were building outside of it. So beyond that, look, we need to examine this whole thing about transit. We need to examine why people are leaving. We know that a huge portion of the county, at least in West Dade and Southwest Miami-Dade, are leaving the area because they're not, and you're going to hear me say this is a theme that's going to be continuous. Lack of jobs. They leave because they don't have an ability to earn high wages in order to stay in the area. Look, before COVID, the Alice report was put up by the United Way, very good report. I encourage everybody to read it. Roughly 59% of the county's households were either poverty or 1-2 paychecks away from poverty. So think about this. They're leaving the area because they're underemployed, underpaid, and now many are unemployed.
10 seconds.
By bringing the industry to the area, we can reverse the traffic, we can keep people in the area, and we can generate the revenue to ensure that we protect and provide those core services that the taxpayers are paying for and the expansions that we desperately need in this emerging economy without putting a burden on taxpayers.
Thank you, Robert. And since we're starting to talk about taxes and revenue and the uncertainty of COVID, it's kind of all here. What are your budget priorities and how would they impact families in communities across Miami-Dade? And that would go to you first, Robert.
Certainly. Well, my biggest priority is to ensure, like I just said, that the core services of the county are provided, that we improve upon the core services that the county provides. And you know what? That goes from infrastructure all the way up to services delivered. Now, we've been talking about transportation. We need to ensure that we enhance the transportation, we modernize the transportation. The routes are 30 years old, according to the Transit Alliance. But apart from that, look, we just had a sewage break on 137th Avenue, for those of you that live in the area, and Bird Road, just south of Bird Road, right? Our commissioner voted against increasing the fund that would have been able to pay for the money there to be able to pay for those sewage spills and revamping the sewage system. Look, we have about 2,000 miles of public sewage piping that we need, and a lot of it is old. We need to make sure that we revamp it and make sure those are the priorities that I need to make sure that we are cutting the fat, the giveaways from the budget, that we are advocating to ensure that the proper funding is there for the core services. Again, I will always say this without creating an added burden on taxpayers, because right now, and people, shouldn't have to pay more unnecessarily. So I would say my priority is the overall budget, specifically as it relates to core services, from transportation to public safety to health. I mean, it's a gamut of the services that we are dependent on.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, what are your budget priorities and how would they impact families and communities across Miami-Dade?
Well, my priority as a Miami-Dade commissioner will be to invest in areas of education, cultural development, and the protection of the environment and green areas in this district and around the community of Miami-Dade County. I think over a long time ago, I think we have set a priority that we need to understand that times are changing. We got climate change. Climate change is not an ideological issue. It should not be, and we need to focus those priorities. And we need to use resources to protect the environment. And the way we do it is how we are going to be successful down the line. And I think that that has to be a priority now, and so that we don't have an issue like we have now. That we knew we were going to have a pandemic about 5 or 6 years ago. Nobody did anything about it. Nobody was prepared for anything. There was no funding for the first responders. There was no funding for the police officers, nothing, not even for the hospitals. And today we have seen that when the COVID hit, we were not prepared simply because we just thought, well, maybe it will happen, but since it's not going to happen now, we're not going to be prepared. We need to invest in the protection of the environment. We need to protect our green areas. We need to protect our areas, especially teach our community how to keep these areas safe and productive. So I think that my budgetary objectives will be in those areas: education, culture development, entrepreneur hubs, but the protection of the environment and the investment of new technology so that we can stop the reliance on fossil fuels and have more intelligent cars that are dependent on electrical technologies to power themselves. That's going to be my priority, because I think we need to focus on that, not because we want to get rid of fossil fuels or destroy the fossil fuel industry. This is not my objective, but we need to focus on our county and our district, because at the end of the day, in 50 years, the water might surpass us. And I think that is a priority.
Thank you, Cristhian. And trying to hit all of the hot issues, especially from the survey we got from the Miami Foundation. Climate change is a big concern amongst residents, and I think justifiably so. We see it around us constantly. So, what's your plan to address climate change? Do you have a climate resiliency program in mind? And that would go to you first, Cristhian.
Well, we need to focus. I think that some countries have been very effective in planning how to address the issue of the rise of currents and how to avoid water from coming into our homes. And I think we need to plan for that. And a way to do it is by, first of all, analyzing the sea rise, how long it's going to take for sea rise to really become an issue. Have the experts, once again, involving the academia, telling us which is the best course of action, how we can have a plan structure from science so that we can actually look for the resources and find solutions for that. One topic that my opponent touched briefly was the topic of pipes around the county. This is another example of how we have had leadership like the one we have now that seeks re-election, but yet over the past 16 years, we haven't seen anything really significant in this county or in this district where we can actually say, well, you know what, we really spent 16 or 20 years with this leadership and we got some effective results. We haven't had any effective results, and that is why we need leadership, and we need to think about those fundamental aspects. A plan that addresses sea rise, a plan that addresses the protection of the environment, and it goes connected with pipes because that's the water we drink. And if we have old pipes, we have all these septic tanks that are either old or destroyed. We need to focus on those things, but fundamentally, we need to understand that we have to stop this policy of putting out fires. We have to have a policy of prevention, and that's what I'm seeking to promote in the Miami County Commission regarding this topic that you just asked.
Thank you, Cristhian. Robert, maybe I won't butcher the question this time, but what are your climate resiliency plans?
Certainly. So I mentioned earlier, we have a resiliency department in the county. I plan to utilize them more. I've already started conferring with some of them, although I don't want to put them on the spot, but I've also started meeting with the community. So look, I spent some time out with the Everglades and in the Everglades with our Native Americans, our neighbors to the west. And one thing that's horrible is the fact that we know that you could not survive on the land if you had to 7 days a week. If you had to live and sustain yourself off the Everglades, you probably had some type of illness. We know the waters definitely need cleaning. So we know that one of the biggest components of my plan will be not only utilizing the resiliency program department, but also partnering up with the water management division of the state of Florida, right? That is something that our commissioner has been absent of. There's no good, strong relationship. The other part of this is, look, we know that the water table, let's be specific about this. We know that because it's really serious we have to have serious leadership, knowledgeable leadership. We know that the water table has risen 5 feet. Some people will say 10 years. I think it's more like, I'm sorry, some people will say 10 years, some people will say it took longer, but the point is that the water table has risen 5 feet. That is whether sea level intrusion, whether it's, encroachment, algae bloom in the Everglades. We need to have specific issues to address that. My plan will include bringing the stakeholders to the table to expand upon their program, the ones that are needs driven, research based, best practices solutions. I don't want to talk talking points. I want to get to the specifics about how to fix and how to work on protecting our environment that we have a responsibility over.
Thank you, Robert. And so hopping around a little bit more, we touched upon this a little bit, but I want to make sure we really double down into this effort because it's affecting a lot of Miami-Dade residents. Before COVID-19, experts estimated that about 250,000 households in Miami-Dade were at risk of falling into poverty or even homelessness. These households were the housing cost burden and earning less than $35,000 a year. As a result of the pandemic, many are now without employment and are unable to pay rent or mortgages. What will you do to prioritize housing affordability for these households? And this is for you, Robert.
Sure. So if we look at the plans or the policies, right, the regulations to build out affordable housing and develop affordable housing, we see that roughly 2, maybe 3 developers only qualify for that. Why? We need to make sure that we expand the circle to be, we revise the policies to be able to allow others to come into this environment to be able to build more cost-effective homes. But look, we know, and I keep talking about emerging industries, I keep talking about workforce development and business growth. If we don't invest in these areas, we're still going to have underemployed and underpaid people. Again, referring back to the Alice report before COVID, 59% of the households, think about that, 59% of the households were either at poverty or 1 or 2 paychecks away from poverty. Now we know many have passed the two paychecks. So we need to make sure that the businesses that we work with are those wages that can provide the higher wage. And one glaring example that we can do, a quick fix, a gem that we have in our district is the executive airport. That is the most underutilized airport in the county system. We can do a couple quick fixes, negotiate long-term leases with the people that are there. We can expand the runway, which is already on the plans, land larger planes, expand the from constructions to infrastructure. We can employ people at higher wage jobs and therefore affect this housing affordability issue.
Thank you, Robert. Cristhian, would you like me to repeat the full question?
No, it's all right. I can answer it. Well, you see, this is why we never get things done in this county, because we're always focused in not answering the question the way it should be answered, which is basically the fact that over the past, I would say 10 years mostly, or I would say more than that, we have been focused in the county in developing areas like Midtown, Miami Beach, all the areas where the most tourism comes, which is basically what generates revenue and generates taxes. So in a way that it's logically understood. But these areas here in West Dade and in Homestead and other also pay taxes and also need to be represented. And one of the unfortunate things is that, at least on my side, my view is that we cannot have affordable housing until we actually have commissioners that go into the county commission who are completely independent, who do not have special interests behind them. And I think that I am that candidate. And I think that by forcing, because we need to force using legislation that actually provisions beyond what we have today, that we have condominiums that are developed, thinking about the person who lives in Miami-Dade, who lives in this district, who lives in District 9, who lives in District 10. And we need to understand that because we are not listening to our community. And we always listening, oh yes, we live in a bubble world and we need to be building more fancy, luxurious condominiums so that rich foreigners can come here and have fun. But we're not thinking about our community. And that is what we need to answer. We need to think about a community-based affordable housing plan. Apart from what we have on Plan 8, we have to think about how we are able to provide housing that is affordable for the people who live in this district and who pay taxes in this district, because that is the main priority. That is how we address issues like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristhian. So we've touched on a lot of topics here, and I've got 20 more amazing questions from the community partners. And I want to just quickly do a quick shout out to all those partners and questions from the audience. They're so well crafted, so well informed. I'm very excited by this sort of traction I'm seeing behind the scenes. So check out those organizations. They're listed on the Miami Foundation's website. Sign up for their email newsletters and stay connected to all the work that they're doing as well, as that's deeply important. My last question kind of taps into the very similar to early on. To run for office, to be a county commissioner, you have to have a vision of where we're going, of what you see can be better in our community. So we're going to do a little vision exercise here for your next question. Pretend that you have been elected to the county commission and you've just completed your first term. Your term was a wild success for you. You were able to accomplish a lot of your goals. So I would like to know what exactly has happened and what went right. And so this will go to you first, Cristhian.
All right. Well, I think that at that moment, I think that I envision a district with smart stations, with the use of the smart city concept to allow technology to be a tool to develop our communities. I see a District 11 with commuter trains, with commuter stations. I see a District 11 with bi-monthly commuter meetings with the commissioner, an open door policy. And I also see a District 11 with entrepreneur hubs, cultural hubs, and also allowing our residents to live and stay in this district and allow our businesses to grow and to hire local residents so that we can actually have a strong district. My objective, if that would be the case, is that at that point, our district would be that beacon of light that I'm dreaming about. This area has extreme potential. And I think that if all those goals are met, if the vision is complete, and if we achieve the goals that we have set, we will have the leadership that we wanted to have, the proposals that we wanted to get done, and also a community that has quality of life, which is my priority. And I think that I see that vision 4 years from now, if God allows that to happen, that we have a more inclusive district, a district based on technology, entrepreneur, but also that mass transit and the involvement of the community is together with that vision. Thank you.
Hey, Cristhian. Robert, it's the future. You've completed your first term and it was a wild success. So what exactly has happened and what went right?
Certainly. So the quality of life has definitely improved. That's the only thing I'll agree with my opponent here, because I want to get into more specifics. He throws a jab at me, but let's talk specifics. One, the airport will have been revitalized. We will have if not already, long-term leases negotiated. We will have the expansion of the runway. We will have the economic benefit of landing single-body aircraft to the area to be able to grow not just in revenue to the county, but also we will have the expansion of businesses, emerging businesses. What does that look like? We have manufacturing. We have smart technology. We are literally in the hurricane alley, which we have not discussed. What are we doing to prepare and make ourselves more resilient? Well, we need to employ those technologies into construction. So I will not go and talk talking points. I will talk specifics with anybody that wants to. So what has been finished after the first year, people will feel proud and they will no longer feel like they've been forgotten by the county commission, which is a big sentiment. And let me ask you all, for those of you that live in West Dade, think about this. What is the landmark that defines us in West Dade? If you ask about Gables, I'm sure you can come up with something. If you ask about Miami Beach, we can come up with something. But many people will not come up with West Dade. We need to make West Dade the center of pride of our county, which we provide 14% of the tax base to the county budget. We need to get our services and our due for that money.
Thank you, Robert. And so now we have reached our closing statements. Robert, since you went first, Cristhian will go first, or I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Cristhian will go first. That's what we agreed upon. And Robert, you will wrap us up there. So Cristhian, you have 60 seconds for your closing remarks.
To all my residents of Miami-Dade District 11, you have a fundamental choice to make. You can continue to rely on what has been told to you over the past few years and think that that is the proper way to go and to move forward. Empty promises and things that have not been completed, or just in any case, not things that have not been met. My campaign is seeking to bring new leadership, and I reiterate that because it's new leadership in all kinds of aspects. And I think that I am asking for your support because I am that candidate. I bring that new leadership. I don't bring talking points. I don't bring ideological points. And I am not here to engage in any type of dirty tactics. I am here to run a campaign for you, for the community, to be your leader, to be your representative in the county commission. And I am asking for your vote and your support. And I am looking forward to serving you, the community, not anybody else, so that we can actually change the way we do politics in Miami-Dade and that we can turn our District 11 into a beacon of light. That is my commitment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Cristhian. And so I kind of goofed there. It's supposed to be 90 seconds in closing statements. I don't know, Cristhian, if you'd like to add more. Otherwise, I'll ask Robert if you can keep it into 60. That's great. And I'm sorry about that.
How many seconds do I have?
30 seconds. Sorry about
30
that.
30 seconds. I was very effective. All right, no problem. No, I mean, just to reiterate the fact that besides what I just said, I want to bring prosperity into our district. I think I've laid out in my plan about entrepreneur hubs and think tanks that counsel our community on how to open businesses, alleviate a lot of the red tape that we have to open businesses here in Miami-Dade County. We need to focus in our community, in our businesses. We need to develop our businesses, but also we need to have the think tanks that allow our young residents to invest in our communities. And we need to bring all these big tech companies into our district so that we can have good paying jobs. And we have the land, we have the space, and that has to be tied to the agricultural aspect of our district, because we need to set up an area where we actually use it, take advantage of it, and make money out of it for our community.
Thank you, Cristhian. Sorry about that mix up there. Robert, your closing statements, please.
Certainly. So what we've seen is with COVID, we've seen an unmasking of failed leadership, lack of leadership. That's caused many people added pain, added burden. While many of you were seeking unemployment benefits or assistance, whether it be to deal with COVID or the existing unmet needs that just have been made worse, our commissioner was silent. I bring a transformative, visionary, committed leadership, style of leadership. I bring 34 years of public service. That's a broad section of public service. I'm not controlled by any one industry. I am basically a public servant. I serve because I want my community to be better. I stand for COVID recovery, mitigation, management, and moving forward. I want our community to do well. And once we do better through the management and getting past this particular crisis, we're going to focus, and we will focus as we move along, on improving housing affordability. And I mentioned how we would improve housing affordability. I'm going to work on transportation. I stand for better transportation, effective transportation. I stand for ensuring that the core services are provided, and that includes holding government accountable, as I have held them before, and rooting out public corruption that stands in the way of us being able to get our services and confidence in government. I want to be that public servant. Commission District 11, number 355 on the ballot. It's time for a better day because you deserve better. On the county commission, excuse me.
Well, thank you, Robert and Cristhian, so much for your time. I appreciate learning about your stances and thoughts on the issues. I certainly encourage everyone listening and to check out the Miami Foundation's website for more of these forums, to look at the candidates' websites and information on their social media, learn more about their positions. This was 60 minutes, not enough time to fully dive into all of the issues that our county faces. And there's a lot of great resources out there to really be informed before you go out and vote. And my own little PSA I'll slip in, if you're doing mail-in ballots, you should try to get those in by tomorrow to ensure there's plenty of time. You can always drop them off at your polling place in a drop box. And if you haven't, fill out your census. And Lauren, I don't know if you have anything else you'd want to close on.
Hey, Bruce, thank you so much for moderating the forum, and thank you so much to our candidates and, of course, our all-star ASL interpreters, and to everybody who's tuned in. Thank you so much, and don't forget, please go vote.
Thank you.